your guys' favorite filters on social media? Like Snapchat, Instagram, what's your go-to? You said coffee filters, that's awesome. Coffee filters are good. Yeah, no, I like the, on like the Instagram stories filters, there's Oslo. It's a very nice one. I find myself using that one quite often. Anybody else got a favorite, a go-to? Cody? Facebook, okay. Facebook filters, do they have, yeah they do, I think. I don't know. What else? Nobody, I know, come on, I know you girls use Snapchat. You guys don't use Snapchat at all? No filters? All right, well, never mind then. We're going to go home. That concludes this Bible study. We'll see you guys next week. No, thanks for blowing up my whole intro there. But filters, like, those are good. Even like professional photographers, like, they just use glorified filters. Like, I think Photoshop or Lightroom is what it's called on Lightroom. Yeah, that's just a glorified filter for, that's just Instagram filters, like, extreme, is what I'll say. Because they like make your pictures look better. Like you could take a picture and the lighting be kind of off, or maybe this hue of this color doesn't stand out quite as much, and so you throw some like layers on it. And it's like, that pops, that looks good, I like it. I'm not knocking it, but it makes things look better than they actually are, right? And Lord knows some of us need things to help them look better than they actually are. Instagram is really good. I think Instagram is the best social media platform to make your life look better than it is. There are like people who make their whole living off of doing just that. Like there are Instagram models and Instagram promoters and businesses, and like their whole life is just like flexing on them. It's crazy. But you look at those pages and you're like, man, I wish my life was like all together like this. Like I wish I got to travel as much as this person. I wish I went to as many like hangouts and parties as this person. I wish I got to eat food like this all the time or live this kind of life. But the truth is that like it's not really real. I don't know if you guys know that or not. Like it is real to an extent, but like those same people, like they still get sick and like have diarrhea. Like they're not perfect, and they still like have blemishes. I don't know if that was my go-to, but I'm just thinking like that's a terrible thing, and it seems like those people would never be sick, but they do. They get sick. They still like have their car break down. They still have to pay for things. Anyways. It's not just social media though. Like I don't have to just be looking at somebody's Instagram page to like kind of feel inadequate about myself or feel like my life isn't as great as I would want it to be. If you just hang around somebody long enough, eventually I would bet that you will be able to find something about that person that you're like, man, I wish my life was like that. It isn't just social media that makes us feel inadequate. A lot of things can actually leave us feeling that way. And so maybe it's like in athletics, like maybe you have PE and you hate it. I don't really know how PE works in a public school, but I'm sure you have like PE tests or something where you got to like run a mile, and it's something real small, and you're like, I'm going to be real slow, and I hate that. Or maybe it's just actual like history class or something, and maybe you just don't get it. No matter how hard you try, it's just like numbers, math, bad stuff. No matter how hard I try, I feel inadequate in math. Like if you talk about numbers with me, I'm probably going to change the subject on you real quick because it's an insecurity. I'm just not good at it. But the point is all of us have something about us. Whatever it is, we all have this one thing that keeps us from feeling confident in who we are. And that's not a bad thing, but the problem is a lot of times we make that like a focus in our life, and we try to like overcompensate. We try to like avoid those, like I just said, I try to avoid that, and I try to play it off like, no, I'm actually pretty smart in that, and then I kind of lie about it, and it becomes this whole weird deal. But here's the thing, like we all have those things in our life that we feel inadequate about, okay? Like that's the platform we're on, right? We can all agree to that, or we all agree with that? I can see your hands. If you put them up, I can see them. Okay, you guys are perfect, you're good? Cool. Again, part 2, we're going home. Bible study's over. You guys are all set. You're doing way better than me, which makes me happy. I'm good with that. Hey, we're going to look at scripture. You guys can go to Exodus 3:11. We're going to be kind of all over the place, so good luck following along. I'm not going to wait for you to get there either. But hey, we've been talking about Moses. It's been a while since we met. So we've talked about Moses. He went from like a baby that should have been killed to a prince, and then he killed an Egyptian, and then he like ran away and went to the desert. You guys remember all that, right? Good, because that's where we're picking off. So he killed somebody. He's living his life as a shepherd. He's out in the wilderness doing his thing. One day he's walking along and he sees like this bush or a shrub. I don't know what the difference is. Anybody with green thumbs out there, holler. But he sees a shrub and it's on fire, and it catches his attention, as should most fires. And then he realizes, hey, that shrub's actually not burning. Like, though it's on fire, it's not like burning up and becoming just like ashes and crisps. So that's weird. So he walks over to it, and then a voice comes out from it, and it's like talking to him. And it's not just any voice, it's the voice of God. So it's really normal, right? He's just doing his thing, and then God starts speaking to him through a burning bush. And God's not trying to just like do tricks and get his attention. There's a reason for that, but that's a whole other thing. But he gets his attention, and he tells him, hey, I want you to go and release your people, my people, the Israelites, from slavery in Egypt. Okay, we talked about that last week, or 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And he responds. Eventually he acts in obedience. But it wasn't that simple. Like, we think about Moses and we see all these good things. Like, oh, he led the people out of slavery. That's good. He was a prince. That's good. And we call him a hero of faith. Like, we see that. We refer to him as that. But he's actually kind of like a goon at times. I mean, he killed somebody, so there's that. But also the fact that, like, he had his own insecurities, and he actually tried to not do what God told him to do because of those insecurities, because of those things that he felt like he wasn't good enough. He put limits on himself. We're going to look at that. So God says, hey, go do this thing. And he says, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? I think here he's probably just trying to be humble and be like, yeah, why me? Like, who am I? If it was me, I'd be scared to death and be like, God, no, please, don't do that. I can't do that. God doesn't have it. He's like, no, like, the job falls on you. You're going to do this. Moses is still hesitant. And then he responds, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. And I like this because he's just being super real. Like, I think at first he was being humble, and then he was like, no, for reals, I am not good at speaking. Like, a lot of people think he had a speech impediment, like a medical thing. A lot of people, in my opinion, is that he didn't. I'm not a scholar, so maybe I'm wrong. Probably am. I don't know. I think he was just bad at talking. I think he was slow to give responses. I think he had to think about things, and thinking about having to go and petition Pharaoh and be like, hey, let my people go, all right? He's going to be like panic mode, choke up, and have like nervous, shaky voice, kind of like I get a lot of the times. And so he's like, God, I'm not equipped to do this. I can't. You got the wrong guy. It got again. I love this verse right here. God doesn't just let him like back down or take his excuses. It says, then the Lord asked Moses, who makes a person's mouth? Who decides whether people speak or do not speak, hear or do not hear, see or do not see? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. He says, I will be with you as you speak, and I will instruct you in what to say. I don't think God was like angry voice right there, although I could see him being angry voice and like, who, like, are you really? You're talking to God? Like, didn't I make you? Didn't I give you the ability to speak? Like, come on, man. Crazy. But I think he's trying to be encouraging. I think he's trying to say, like, dude, I gave you the ability to speak. So go. I'll be with you. Like, I'm gonna hold your hand through this. I'm gonna tell you what to say. You're gonna be fine. And in this moment I can like hear the desperation in his voice, because I think Moses at this point realizes, I'm not getting out of this. I try to be humble. I try to like tell him why I'm not qualified to do it. And now I really don't have any reason. I think I'm going to have to get stuck with this. And it's desperation. He says, Lord, please. Like, he can't even put a request in. Just, Lord, please. He says, send to anyone else. Like, he's just desperate. He doesn't even have a reason. He's just, please don't make me do this. Send anyone else. God, please. Kind of makes me sad for a second, and then I realized God's asked me to do this really big task, and that's really cool. But that didn't work, and God tells Moses, he suggests that Moses' brother Aaron will come along as a speaker to help him out. And so God tells Moses, talk to him, meaning Aaron, and put the words in his mouth. I will be with both of you as you speak, and I will instruct you both in what to do. So here's Moses. He's literally talking to God. God's telling him, dude, I made your mouth. I gave you the ability to talk. I'll be with you. You're going to be all right. Just go do this thing for me. You'll be fine. And homeboy still doesn't get it. He still like has this insecurity and doesn't think that he's equipped to do it. And he thinks like, I'm not going to be able to speak good enough. And that's a limit that he's putting on himself. So Moses had a speech problem. Moses had a confidence problem. Maybe he had an obedience problem. But even though Moses was limited by his weaknesses, God wasn't. God wasn't limited by the shortcomings of Moses. Right? And we already saw it last week. Moses eventually listens, and eventually God's people become free from slavery in in Egypt, right? So even though he had these own weaknesses that he had, God wasn't limited by those. And so if we look at this conversation between Moses and God, what can we take away? What can be learned from it? I think we should learn that don't let your fear hold you back when God calls you forward. Don't let your fear hold you back when God calls you forward. That is huge. That is a big lesson to learn. For some of us, it comes more naturally than others. Personally, that's something that I struggle with. When God's telling me to do something, a lot of times I bring up my own inadequacies. I bring up my own insecurities and be like, I'm just mishearing you, God. I'm interpreting this passage wrong, or I'm just no, you're not speaking to me. You wouldn't ask me to do that. Or my own fears, my own excuses, my own weaknesses, I let those put limits on myself. But really, guys, look at Scripture. What does it say? We see it time and time again. God uses people despite of themselves, despite their weaknesses. So don't let your fear hold you back when God calls you forward. So what if the weaknesses in you did not limit God's plan for you? Let's just, you might be having a hard time believing that, so let's just assume that that's true. Okay, just for this moment, just assume that's true. What if you didn't have to worry about whether you were smart enough or talented enough, confident enough, good-looking enough, athletic enough, strong enough, had a big enough voice, or were good enough to do what God was asking you to do? Just what if? What would that change for you? What would that look like in your life? Would you go on more mission trips? Would you talk to more people about the Lord? Would you be nicer to people in your day-to-day? Would you represent Christ more? Would you join student leadership team? Would you go on the retreat with us? I don't know what it is. What about your future? That's right now stuff. What about your future? Would that change the way your future looked? Maybe you choose a different career path after high school, right? Maybe you mend relationships with your family. Maybe there's tension in the home between your parents, and you don't think that you're capable of changing that. But what if you were? What if despite whatever weaknesses you have, God was able to work in that situation and bring healing, and that changed the way the rest of your life looked because of that renewed and restored relationship with you and your parents? Just what if? So as we go to small groups, what is the thing that holds you back? That's what I want you to be thinking about. What is the fear? What is that fear of? What's holding you back? And that's what I want you to realize too, is that it's your fear is what is holding you back. Your weaknesses actually aren't. It's your fear. Because God doesn't see that weakness as something that's going to limit him. Okay? All right, well, I'm going to pray, and then we're going to go to small groups. Father, I just want to thank you for your word. Thank you for the example. Thank you for allowing us to see the shortcomings of Moses, so that we can actually be encouraged by those and know that, hey, he's a hero of faith, and we can be one too. God, I just pray that you would allow us to be real with ourselves and identify those fears about our weaknesses that we have, and just be okay with the weaknesses and realize that you can work in spite of them, God. God, we ask you to prompt us to respond to you tonight, to burden us and convict us so that we can respond in faith and just be used by you, God, and help bring glory to you in your name. And we love you so much. In your name we pray. Amen.